Welcome back to my channel Knowledge Chronicle.
Today we're going to unfold one of the most fascinating and vital processes that keep life moving on Earth: nutrient cycling. We'll break it down, explain each type, and go deep into the carbon cycle and phosphorus cycle with examples. Trust me, once you understand this, you'll never look at ecosystems the same way again. Let's start with the basics. Every living organism, whether it's a plant, an animal, or even bacteria, needs nutrients to grow, reproduce, and stay alive. Nutrients like carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and others are required constantly. But here's the question: where do they come from again and again? That's where nutrient cycling comes in. Nutrient cycling is the continuous movement of these elements through different parts of an ecosystem, from soil to plants to animals to air and water, and back again. This cycle ensures that nutrients are reused and recycled indefinitely. So they're never really lost, just transformed and transferred. It's also called the biogeochemical cycle. Bio means living organisms, geo refers to the Earth's rocks, soil, air, and water, and chemical refers to the elements themselves. So nutrient cycling connects the living and non-living parts of nature. That's why it's essential for sustaining life. You might have come across the term standing state in your textbook. The standing state is the amount of nutrients present in the soil at any given time. Think of it like the current balance of nutrients in your soil wallet. This balance varies depending on the type of ecosystem: forest, grassland, desert, and so on. It also depends on the season, whether it's dry or wet. It's important to remember that the standing state is temporary, but the nutrients themselves are cycled again and again. They don't disappear. Now let's classify them. Nutrient cycles are of two types. First, we have gaseous cycles. Here, the main reservoir is the atmosphere. Some examples include the carbon cycle and the nitrogen cycle. Second, we have sedimentary cycles. In this case, the main reservoir is the Earth's crust or rocks. Examples are the phosphorus cycle and the sulfur cycle. The rate at which nutrients are released into the environment is controlled by factors like soil type, moisture, pH, and temperature. So even the environment plays a pretty big role in managing nutrient balance. Now, let's take a deep dive into the carbon cycle. It's honestly one of the most important cycles in ecology. Carbon is everywhere, in glucose, proteins, DNA, and even in fossil fuels. In fact, carbon makes up 49% of the dry weight of living organisms. So, where is all the carbon? Here's the surprising part. 71% of all carbon is actually dissolved in oceans. They're the biggest carbon reservoir. The atmosphere, on the other hand, holds only 1% of total global carbon. But it's still very impactful. So, how does the carbon cycle actually work? Well, first there's photosynthesis. Plants take in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and convert it into food using sunlight. This is basically the main entry point of carbon into the living world. Then, animals eat these plants and get carbon in the form of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Next, through respiration, both plants and animals return carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere. And when organisms die, decomposers like bacteria and fungi break them down, releasing even more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere or sometimes into the ocean. Now, some carbon gets locked away in sediments and rocks and becomes fossil fuels over millions of years. But when we burn wood, fossil fuels, or even when there are forest fires, carbon dioxide gets released back into the air. Oh, and let's not forget volcanoes. They also emit carbon dioxide into the atmosphere naturally. But here's the thing. Because of deforestation and the excessive burning of coal, petrol, and diesel, we're adding way more carbon dioxide to the air than nature can actually absorb. This leads to the greenhouse effect and global warming. So yeah, the carbon cycle is not just a textbook concept. It's directly connected to climate change too. Now let's talk about the phosphorus cycle. It's a sedimentary cycle with, well, no gaseous phase at all. Why is phosphorus important? Well, phosphorus is found in DNA and RNA, cell membranes, ATP, which is the energy currency of the cell, and also in bones, teeth, and shells in animals. So, where does it come from? The main reservoir of phosphorus is rocks, which contain it in the form of phosphates. Here's how it cycles. First, weathering of rocks, rain and wind slowly break down rocks, releasing phosphates into the soil. Next, plants absorb these phosphates through their roots. Then, animals eat plants and obtain phosphorus. Finally, when plants and animals die, phosphate-solubilizing bacteria break down their bodies and release phosphorus back into the soil. So, Unlike the carbon cycle, there's actually no release of phosphorus into the atmosphere through respiration. And, rainfall adds very little phosphorus, which is quite different from carbon that's part of carbon dioxide in the air. That means the phosphorus cycle is more local and honestly a lot slower, depending mostly on rock weathering and microbial activity. Let's take a quick look at the carbon cycle versus the phosphorus cycle, just a simple comparison really. First up, the type. The carbon cycle is gaseous, so it involves the air. On the other hand, the phosphorus cycle is sedimentary. It stays mostly in rocks and soil. Now, for the main reservoir, for carbon, it's the atmosphere and the oceans, while for phosphorus, it's mainly the Earth's rocks. Okay, let's talk about atmospheric exchange. So for carbon, it's actually pretty high because it moves through the air as carbon dioxide. But for phosphorus, it's very low since it doesn't really have a gaseous form. Now, when it comes to speed, carbon moves fast. It cycles quickly through plants, animals, and the air. On the other hand, phosphorus moves slowly because it depends on rock weathering. Here's how humans impact these cycles. For carbon, burning fuels leads to global warming, and for phosphorus, fertilizers can cause eutrophication when they get into water bodies. So to wrap it all up, nutrient cycling is nature's genius system of recycling essential elements so that life can continue on Earth, without pause, without waste. Whether it's the fast and atmospheric carbon cycle or the slow and rock-based phosphorus cycle, both play an irreplaceable role in ecosystems, agriculture, climate, and ultimately, our survival. Understanding this not only helps in your exam, but also makes you appreciate how everything in nature is interconnected. If you found this explanation helpful, then please like, share, and subscribe to Knowledge Chronicle. Your one like, share, and subscribe will help us create more valuable content. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.